applied to Dominic Cruz applies even more so to Jon Jones. Because while it might seem like an insane take to say the arguable greatest fighter of all time had a career that fell short, there's really no other way to look at it. Jon was already an all-time great by the time his first ever suspension and subsequent title stripping happened in early 2015. That was nearly 10 years ago. If you add up each suspension, as well as the time he took after his contract dispute and vacating of the light heavyweight title, and his current hiatus due to injury, Jon's had about 2,850 days he's been unavailable to fight. That is 7.8 years. During a decade span of time, of course never beaten in the cage, and before the suspension averaging 3 fights a year, if Jones never gets suspended, never has his contract disputes, never gets injured, we wouldn't even be talking about if you could argue that he's not the GOAT, because he'd have every single record that exists by now. There would be no argument. Now, I'm not saying there couldn't be a late career decline, but there is no doubt that a ton of Jon Jones's greatness was left on the table over the last 10 years, and the sport is worse off as a result. The current frustrations over his lack of interest in unifying the titles against Aspinall pales in comparison to the greatness that he's squandered despite being the best ever. Number 4, Tony Ferguson. Many of the fighters on this list are cursed, but Tony might be the most so.
Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby!
And that is because he is the only fighter in this video who was never afforded a title opportunity in the UFC, despite for a time him being arguably the best lightweight in the world. And that is because of some of the worst luck in the history of this sport. For starters, Tony was in the UFC title picture at the same time that Conor McGregor was holding that belt hostage.
You're gonna need a fucking army to come take them belts off me.
So even when he won interim gold a whole year into McGregor's reign, he never had the opportunity to capitalize on it. After Conor was stripped, it then became his failed bouts with Khabib Nurmagomedov. While the fight would fall through on 5 separate occasions, 2 of them were meant to be for undisputed gold. The first of which fell apart when Tony injured his knee after tripping over a cable on fight week, and the second when Khabib was unable to travel due to the sudden COVID lockdowns. Would Tony have ended up a champion? There is no way of ever knowing, and that is the part about his career that is so frustrating. His struggles as of late have only added to that bitter feeling fans have about what more there should have been for El Cucuy. Number 3, Conor McGregor. On several different occasions, Conor McGregor has addressed fans who have said they wish 2016 Conor was still